Hey everyone, back tuning into the winter 2015-2016 forecast from gasweathervids.com. Throughout the autumn, we've been looking at various things such as solar activity, Siberian snow cover, sea surface temperature anomalies, and El Nino, and other things too, to try and come up with an idea of what may happen for this coming winter. And we've also done seasonal model roundup videos as well. So we did 10 regular winter updates. We did 3 seasonal model roundup videos. For the last one of those we did on Sunday. That was a mixed bag, and generally throughout this autumn the storyline has been that we've had a lot of uncertainty in terms of the drivers and the things that I look at, so it's a confused and a complicated picture as we move ourselves into the winter 2015-2016 forecast. But this is the forecast, so this is it. There's nothing else left to do but to try and come up with a forecast for this winter. But it is a very, very challenging winter indeed. So I'll get on with the forecast in a moment. We'll recap on the things that we've looked at as well. But before I get on with that, just to say about the ads, there's links to articles on all the pages. Guys, this have a browser widgets and click through the links. If there's any articles that you're interested in, thanks so much for doing that. There's video ads on most of the pages. They open up in the content. When you watch them, they'll close back up again. It's all helping to pay for websites, so thanks very much for doing that. And also, the shop is open, so if you've got any Christmas shop to do at Amazon between now and Christmas, please click through the Amazon banners. You'll be able to go off to Amazon and do your Christmas shopping as normal. But because you're going from Gas Service to Amazon, we get a revenue fee on the things that you're purchasing. Thanks very much for doing that. I want to say a big thank you to James, Stuart and Terry for all of the help they've given me through this season. I couldn't do these longer range updates without the collaborative process that goes on between myself and James, Stuart and Terry Scully. So huge thank you to all three of you. I know you'll be watching this update. I think we're doing something quite special here at Gas Vids without getting too sentimental about it, but I think we're doing something quite special in this collaborative process and hopefully driving the speciality of long-range forecasting through a little bit. So they've been supplying me with loads of information, loads of charts, analogues, and also tips and information behind the scenes. So again, big thank you to all three of you. If you can't watch the forecast in one sitting, don't worry, it'll be kept around the website on the winter forecast page indefinitely. It won't be going anywhere. It's one of the biggest updates they do through the year, so you can come back and watch it whenever you want. There's also going to be a written summary. If it isn't there already, there will be a written summary on the winter forecast page to go with this video, so you can't watch a video. I suppose you can't watch it, you won't be listening to this announcement now, but if you can't watch the video, then there'll be a written summary as well to go with. And just to say, enjoy the video. Remember, long-range forecasting is highly experimental and not to be relied upon, and particularly this year when things are so complicated. Just bearing in mind that it's just a rough guide of what may happen for the winter of 2015-2016, but there's no guarantees with this or any other long-range forecast. So with that said, let's get on with it for the winter of 2015-2016. I want to start at the very beginning. We began all of this back at the start of June, can you believe, when we did the NAO forecast. The NAO forecast is based on sea surface temperature anomalies in the Atlantic Ocean. And to get a cold winter signal in the month of May for the coming winter, we're looking for a tripole. So through the month of May, we want to see 3 distinct bands in the northern Atlantic Ocean. We want to see a warm, cold and warm tripole with warmth to South Greenland, cold through the central Atlantic, and then warmth through the tropics. When you get that in May, that could be a signal for a re-emergence of that pattern in the winter, and if you get that in the winter, then it is a signal for a negative North Atlantic oscillation, which is associated with the cold winter. Now, when we did the NAO forecast at the start of June, based on May's sea surface temperature anomalies, we didn't have a tripole. We had quite a cold Atlantic, and actually we're still going to quite a cold Atlantic. I'll show you that in a moment. But this isn't a tripole, so it isn't a signal for a negative NAO. So the starting point, if you like, for all of this was that the Atlantic was in a setup that's probably conducive to a positive NAO, which is westerlies and Atlantic-driven type winter pattern. So this is the latest sea surface temperature. You can see we've still got that cold blob in the northern Atlantic coast, so that's not really gone anywhere. And overall, the sea surface temperatures through the Atlantic very similar to how we had them in the month of May. Now, whilst this doesn't signal a negative NEO, it does have an effect on the westerlies, and it cools the westerlies down a little bit, but of course that isn't as pronounced in winter as it is in the summer. In winter, our coldest air always comes from the north and the east, so this is less impactful at this time of year in terms of cooling the westerlies down, as opposed to what you would have in the summer. So that's the situation in the Northern Atlantic Ocean. In terms of the Pacific Ocean, we've also been looking at that, of course. Well, the northeastern Pacific's been still in quite a warm state, but not as warm as the past couple of years. But the main thing in Pacific, of course, is the signature of El Nino. So this massive red here is the signature of what is almost a record-breaking El Nino. If it doesn't reach a record-breaking El Nino, it will be more or less there. It'll be on a par with 97, 98 and 82, 83. And this is the signal of this winter. So this is the canvas on which everything else is painted, if you like. You think that we're creating a work of art. The canvas on which it's all painted, the background signal for this winter is this super El Nino event, and it is a mega super Nino, there's no question about that. And it's becoming central base as well. Now, this is a very unique combination. Normally when you have these really strong El Nino events, they are uniform events where it's as warm from the Peruvian coast, which is here, into the central part of the equatorial Pacific. It isn't like that, or it has been like that, but it's gradually starting to trend towards a more central-based El Nino, so it's becoming warmer through the central part of the equatorial Pacific. That can be a signal for a colder type winter, certainly for America, because it enhances the southern branch of the jet stream through the United States. But it can also be a colder signal for us some years. I've talked about this in the update, so don't want to go too overboard and make this video too long. So if you want to see, I'm just going to touch on things we've been looking at. If you want to see them in depth, go back through the 10 updates. They're all on the winter updates and forecast page. You can see exactly what we've been talking about through the season. But a central base El Nino is essentially a signal for a colder winter in America. It can be a signal for a colder winter in the UK and Europe as well. But the big question with this is that it's a very strong event, but becoming a central base. We've never had that combination. Only when it's very strong, it's a uniform event. And I haven't talked about the strength of the El Nino a great deal, but my position on this is that the stronger the El Nino gets, the worse the news, really, if you want a cold winter, because it sort of enhances the jet stream, and whilst the jet stream may track a little bit further south, perhaps, than normal, because it's becoming central base, I think it's still going to be a pretty strong jet stream, certainly through the first part of the winter. So it does, the fact it's become so strong, does give us a complicating factor. If this was a fairly weak, moderate, sort of borderline strong event, then okay, we may be able to start thinking about a very cold winter. But because this is such a strong event, it gives me grave doubts about going to a very cold winter. So I'll already throw that at you, but I'm not going to go for a severely cold winter for this season. I just dare not do that with such a strong El Nino event, albeit it's becoming central based. Now, of course, we have been looking at solar activity. So this is what we've been looking at, the solar disk and the sunspots, of course. This is from soham.net. Very few sunspots there. That's what we've been watching out for, to see how active the sun has been. We're dropping down into solar minimum. This is from NASA, and this is where we was last winter in terms of solar activity. This is where we are right now, so you can quite clearly see the drop down in sunspot numbers that have occurred from last winter to now. Now, quite interestingly, the current solar cycle, number 24, has been running very closely with an old solar cycle number 12. This is from our good friend James actually, I thanked at the start of the video, and the yellow lines here indicating the current solar cycle, number 24, the green lines indicating the old solar cycle from 1878, I think, to 1890. I think I've got that right. George James will correct me if I'm wrong. But it compares both of those solar cycles, and you see how closely aligned they have been. This is where we currently are, by the way, in terms of solar cycle 24. So again, you can see we're dropping down into solar minimum. Now, solar cycle 12, which is one from the 1800s, had this final spike up before the definitive drop down into solar minimum. Because we've been running quite closely aligned with these two solar cycles, we've been speculating that we may get one final spike in solar activity if it occurs through the winter. Then that will put the mockers a little bit on getting a cold winter. There's no sign of that spike occurring yet, but of course we won't know until it actually happens, whether it does happen, if you see what I mean. So we've got to keep an eye on solar activity throughout the winter. Now, very interestingly, the winters of these two solar cycles, number 12 and the current one, 24, have been aligning very, very closely. So this chart, again, it's from James, and it shows how these winters have been aligning really closely throughout the two solar cycles. Again, I won't go into this in too much detail because we've touched on it in the earlier videos, and if you want to see about all of this, it's very, very interesting stuff, then please check out the videos on the winter updates and forecast page. This is the winter that aligns with our current winter. So this is 1885, 1886 lining up with 2015, 2016. You'll notice it's a colder than average winter. It was a cold than average winter. Because the winters have been so similar through these two solar cycles, we've been speculating that maybe we would drop into a cold winter for this winter to go with its counterpart 1885, 1886. Now, what's quite interesting is that James discovered that 1885, 1886 was also an El Nino winter. So this looked like it could be a bit of a game changer when we did the earlier updates back in September. I was pretty excited about this. James sent this over in September, and at that point, you see the two El Ninos, the one in 1885, 1886, which is this one, and our current, or what was the current El Nino of 2015, were quite close. Were quite close, quite closely aligned, and that really did look very exciting. But of course, we've seen a dramatic strengthening of this El Nino since James sent us this chart. So if we was looking at this now, we would probably be up here somewhere, virtually off the scale in terms of the strength of this El Nino. So actually, what looked like a pretty good match in terms of the two winters with the solar cycles, and in terms of El Nino, probably not such a good match now, because this was the peak of the El Nino in 1885, 1886. This is where we're going to peak with this El Nino event through the central part of the equatorial Pacific. But it is interesting that both winters are going to be El Nino winters. It's just this one going to be much, much stronger, and that goes against the chance of a colder winter. Just the strength of the El Nino, I think, will enhance the jet stream more than it would have done in 1885, 1886. Now, of course, we've also been looking at the seasonal models. I mentioned them at the start of the video. So, for example, this is the NASA model. This is the temperature forecast from NASA for December. First of all, very mild month being indicated. But by the time we get through to February, the model is indicating a significantly colder than average month. We've been monitoring Atlantic hurricane activity through the tropical part of the Atlantic Ocean, and it's been a very quiet season. Again, the third quiet Atlantic hurricane season in a row. So we had just 4 hurricanes and 2 major hurricanes, 11 storms. Not a great deal going on, and that goes a little bit against the chance of a colder winter as well, because you want to see lots of hurricanes, there'll be lots of heat in the Arctic. We started off very early in the videos looking at this particular chart, which is the Arctic sea ice extent. Very interesting again. So we had quite a big melt season actually in the Arctic. This black line taking us down to a fair old level, really. We didn't go into a death spiral. We didn't go down like we did in 2012. So we didn't sort of see a melt out of the Arctic, but we did see a pretty big melt season. It was on a par, I would say, 2007, 2008, I think 2011 as well. So that sort of goes a little bit in favour of a chance of blocking during this winter. And something else that also goes in favour of the chance of blocking is this, which is the Siberian snow cover that developed across October. So here we are at the start of October, not with a great deal of snow, but look how things develop through the month. By the time we go through to the 12th of October, lots and lots of snow already piling up across Russia, and that just continued through the month. So by the time we got through to the end of October, we finished up virtually covered across the whole of Russia. And this favours blocking, particularly Siberian blocking, somewhat. So you see the things we're playing around with here. Some of the signals are indicating quite cold winter weather, blocked winter weather. Some of the things are going against blocked and cold winter weather. One of the major issues going against blocked and cold winter weather is the QBO. So that's what I'm going to show you next. This chart is indicating where we are in terms of the QBO, and we're in this grey area just here. This is a westerly QBO, quasi-biennial oscillation, and that is telling us that the zonal westerlies across the northern hemisphere are likely to be strengthened and enhanced through the course of this winter season, which again goes against the idea of cold weather and blocking. So you really can see what we're juggling with here, and it's like a balancing act. Some things are going pointing towards a colder winter, some things are pointing towards a milder winter. What we do with the QBO is we combined it with El Nino, and that's where our good friend Stuart Markham came in. We did some analogues and tried to go back in time to put the QBO together with a strong and maybe central-based El Nino. There weren't very many years to go by, but one year that did come out is 1941-1942, an old winter back in the Second World War, and that was a cold winter. This reanalysis chart was from Stuart at chillyweather.com. And this is for January 1942. You can see that it was a very blocked month with lots of high pressure to the north and low pressure across many parts of Europe. So bitterly cold air from the north and the east, both in January and February 1942. I thought this analogue was really good, and I thought this, similar to the El Nino stuff and the winter of 1885-1886, I thought that could be a game changer. I thought this might be a game changer. But I've been talking to Terry recently, Terry Sky, who's pointed out that the problem with 41-42, and in some ways it is quite a close match for the current situation, but the one problem with it is that it was probably influenced by the Halley cycle or the Hale cycle. That's a solar cycle that gives us a roughly 23-year interval of cold winters, and that year actually occurred in 1939-1940, a severe cold winter, 39-40. And then the two winters after that, 40-41 and 41-42, which is the analogue we've been looking at for this winter, those were probably influenced by the first Hale or Halley winter, if you see what I mean. So we can go back through the Central England temperature and have a look at this actually, because I've not spoken about this very much, and I'm going to ask Terry if he can do a blog post about that Halley or Hale cycle in a few weeks' time. I'm throwing that at Terry a little bit. I haven't asked him about that, but hopefully he'll be happy to do something. So the first Hale winter of the 20th century is 1917, and then we go down to the next one, the second one of the 20th century, which was 1940. Then we go down to the next one, which is 1963, and then we go down to the next one, which is going to be 1985, just there. And then we go down to the last one, and we just had one quite recently in 2009-2010. That was the last Hale or Halley winter. Now, what's interesting about this is that the winters that have come after these Hale winters can be cold. So I think the idea probably is that 41-42, at least the severity of it was mainly down to the earlier Hale winter that occurred in 39-40. But nevertheless, it is a reasonably close match in terms of El Nino, and also in terms of the Atlantic and in terms of solar activity as well. It's fairly close to where we are right now in this particular winter 2015-2016. So we can't discount it entirely, and maybe the idea of becoming more blocked and colder later on is what we should go with rather than the severity. So that really sums up everything we've been looking at through this season through the autumn updates, the 10 updates that we did, and also the 3 seasonal model updates. Now I've got to get on with the forecast. You see, it's a very challenging forecast because we've got so much discrepancy going on here between the signals. Some of them looking quite cold, some of them looking quite mild. So the first thing to say is what I said in terms of the strength of this El Nino. I think that goes against getting a very cold or severe winter. So I'm not going to predict a very cold or severe winter. In fact, I'm going to go for a winter that's a little bit milder than average. And the reason I think that is that the first half of the winter, particularly through December, maybe going into the start of January as well, to the middle part of January, that period I think is likely to be quite significantly mild, and whilst I would expect will trend colder through the second half of the winter, it will depend on whether we get a sudden stratospheric warming. You see, El Nino winters tend to have sudden stratospheric warming events occurring later on in the winter, and that increases your chance of blocking. Doesn't guarantee anything, I always say. The position of the block is what is the critical factor. But I think we will trend colder. How cold we trend is going to be the unknown factor about this winter. And February is the joker in the pack, if you like, because it could go very cold, or it may not go particularly cold at all, just trend cooler, you can see what I mean. So we start off very mild, and then we just trend close to average. If that happens, we're going to have a significantly milder than average winter. But my suspicion is that we will trend quite cold. I won't go to severe cold, but I think we'll trend quite cold in the latter part of the winter, and that should pull down the overall temperature for this winter, probably close to average, or a little bit above average. So the GasWeatherVids.com winter 15-16 forecast of the temperature is to be a little bit milder than average. In terms of precipitation and rainfall, I think we probably get near normal precipitation. Again, a lot of offsetting and fighting going on with this winter. So the first part likely to be very mild, potentially very stormy as well. Do look out for windstorms. And then later on, I think we'll trend drier as we trend cooler, or maybe even colder. So averaging it out, we probably come out with near normal precipitation. So that's the forecast for this winter. A winter of two halves in some way, and quite a lot of fighting going on. It's almost similar to last winter, actually, in terms of the drivers fighting against one another. One driver trying to get ascendancy, but not really being able to for any length of time. And overall, we come out not too far from the average. But unlike last winter, where it was a very we came out not too far from the average. It's a very average winter, not a great deal going on. I think this winter will be much more interesting. There'll be potentially some very big contrasts. It could be very mild at times. Could also potentially, I'm not going to rule it out, could potentially be very cold at times towards the end of the winter. So I'm going to leave you with a summary in a second, just to sum up everything that we've discussed in this forecast. I hope you've enjoyed the forecast. I hope you've enjoyed the journey. I know the destination isn't necessarily where you would have wanted to go. I know many of you watching would have wanted me to go for a cold or severely cold winter. I just dare not go that far with this due to the strength of this El Nino event. So although the destination might not be where you necessarily wanted to go, I hope you've enjoyed the journey through the course of this autumn. As I say, I'm going to leave you with a summary now, just summing up everything that we've discussed. So are we still recording? Better make sure. Yes, we are still recording. Okay, so I'm sorry about that. I'm just fiddling about a little bit with my boxes. Okay, I'm going to leave you with the summary now. So again, thanks for watching throughout the autumn, and thanks for watching this video as well. And this is it. This is the Winter 15-16 forecast summary. Bye for now.